How you doing? It's Lee Stranahan. I got a bunch of reports coming up. I told you guys last night that I was planning to do the mother of all periscopes on this Leschenko thing, this new revelation that Chuck Ross came out with recently at the Daily Caller. And I'm going to do that too, but I want to talk about John Solomon first. Do me a favor, retweet this puppy. I'm just going to do an intro while people are coming in quickly. If you may not know who I am, some people may be new, and we welcome you. My name is Lee Stranahan. I'm a reporter. I have something called Citizen Journalism School, citizenjournalismschool.com. I made a video for you to tell you about it, but I've been a reporter for about 12 years. I've written for Huffington Post. I've written for Breitbart News, where I was the lead investigative reporter, and Andrew Breitbart called me the best working experience of his life. He and I were close friends. And now I host a radio show called Fault Lines with Nixon and Stranahan on Radio Sputnik. So I work for Russia. But they don't tell me what to do, and they don't tell me what to say, and that's one reason I work for them. I'm fine with working for people if they leave me alone. To the extent Breitbart did, I was happy. When they started telling me, killing my stories and telling me, big stories like the Syrian refugee crisis, I had to quit Breitbart to go to Lebanon. So I'm not afraid to quit jobs. I went to Lebanon in 2013 and started covering that. Now, today, though, I'm going to be doing a series of reports on John Solomon. John Solomon is a reporter, but he's not really a reporter. He's an executive vice president. That's important to note. He's billed as a reporter. When you see him on Fox News and stuff like that, he's billed as a reporter. But really, he's the executive vice president at The Hill, which is a mainstream. If you think about it, The Hill is like, in other words, he's not some intrepid reporter over there. He's part of them. And we'll talk about that. Now, by the way, don't take my word on stuff. I mentioned I work for Russia because one of the things that I do as a reporter, which is different than other reporters, is I do fact-based reporting, which means I don't take my word for it. So if I tell you John Solomon is an executive vice president at The Hill, it's because if you look up his LinkedIn page, which is right here, you'll see that he lists himself as the executive vice president for The Hill. See how we just settled that? I know some people are confused in this day and age how you can figure out what's true. Well, here's one way. You look at what people admit themselves. In other words, it's not controversial that I work for Russia. I work for Sputnik. It's Russian funded. Now, you may have a lot of things that go along with that. You may think to yourself, well, I don't trust Russia and Putin's bad and whatever, right? By the way, you've been brainwashed in a lot of that stuff, but I'm not asking you to believe me on that point right now. I will tell you that a lot of my followers, and I have the most awesome followers in the world, will tell you that via my reporting, but more importantly, via looking it up for themselves, via research on their own, every single thing I say is completely confirmable, because that's what I do. Now, John Solomon is a shill, and his purpose is to fool people on the right. He goes on Fox all the time and everything else, and his job is to fool people on the right. So you'd think he's on the right, right? I'm going to show you a little bit about his background. Now, by the way, this background doesn't disqualify him, but I'm going to do later reports today where I'll show you how he has lied to MAGA, specifically hoping to trick the president, and he's been successful at it for over a year now. But I'm going to show you why I think he's done it first. I'm going to show you, don't take my word. Everything I say, maybe I just made this page on LinkedIn. Maybe the Kremlin hooked it up for me. Or maybe you can go to LinkedIn, type John Solomon, and you'll find it yourself. I much prefer you to do that. Go look for it yourself. If anyone can show I'm lying here, then let's talk about it. And we'll compare links, and then everybody can sort of adjudicate it for themselves. So I want to point out a couple things here about his resume. I want to point out that John Solomon spent 19 years at the AP. He was assistant chief of bureau, right? That's the first significant thing he mentions That's in 1987. And he graduated in well, no, that's wrong. Forgive me. I have very bad eyesight. I'm legally blind. Forgive me. 1987. So I assume he retired as the assistant, or he left as the chief of the bureau. But nearly 20 years. That's a long frickin' time to be at the AP. You notice he started there, it looks like fairly shortly after. See, this is what's confusing to me. Forgive me. I'm just noticing something. Am I reading that right? 1984 to 1998? That doesn't make any sense to me. I don't understand that, but okay. I'm going to move on because I don't understand it. But let me point out that this stuff about his resume that I'm about to show you is very significant for one reason. A lot of people don't know this. Let's go over this next one. Now, and aside from the fact that, like I say, he's not just a reporter. See, he's always about, if he gets introduced on Fox, I'll show you this later. He's introduced as, a great investigative reporter. No, he's not at all. He's a liar, but I'll go over that. Just put a bookmark in that. But I want you to notice that he was a journalist in residence at the Center for Public Integrity. Furthermore, if we look up other stuff on him, we will find that he was not just a journalist in residence. He was a executive there in 2010, 2011. Center for Public Integrity. Now, again, he's billed as like he's the conservative at the Hill. No, not really. Maybe a Republican, but he's no conservative. So the Center for Public Integrity, if you looked at who they are, let's go over who they are. And this is a report here called on Influence Watch. The Center for Public Integrity is a left-of-center investigative journalism group headquartered in Washington, D.C. It's ostensibly nonpartisan for tax purposes, but a majority. Now, who funds them? Let's find out who funds them, shall we? Funding. The Ford Foundation, big leftist funder. The Omidyar Network Fund. This is important. Ask Jack Posobiec about that. Like I say, I give shout-outs to Jack, and Jack gives them to me. Jack pointed out Pierre Omidyar's connection to some of this stuff recently. But I just want you to put a bookmark. Notice that Omidyar is in here. By the way, he went to the same school, the Puna House School, Donald Trump did. He's a significant funder of groups, again, left groups, founder of eBay and stuff like that. But keep him in mind, okay? Jack talks more about him. I'm not going to go off on that right now. But look at the next group, the Foundation to Promote Open Society. That sounds a lot like George Soros' Open Society Foundation, and sure enough, it is. It is exactly the Open Societies Foundation. That's exactly who it is. Why the different names? Let me show you. Again, feel free to look up all this stuff on your own. Feel free to confirm all of this. I'm pointing out that John Sullivan worked for a group that was extensively funded by Soros. That doesn't really talk about all of the thing. By the way, you can find this stuff also. Hang on. So if we go down, so this is the Left Exposed, the Center for Public Integrity. And they've got a list here of the funders. And I want you to notice how Soros works because it's interesting. Here's the Knight Foundation. By the way, the Knight Foundation is one of the big groups pushing for radical left criminal justice reform. The John D. and Catherine T. MacArthur Foundation. Okay? The Ford Foundation. Again, these are all leftist, what my friend Andrew Breitbart used to call institutional left think tanks. Carnegie, okay? But let's go here. Here's the Open Society Institute, $2 million. But look, here's the Foundation to Promote Open Society, $2 million. So really the Soros funding is $4 million. That would make him the fourth biggest donor if we just include those. Then here's Omidyar, the Annenberg Foundation, right? Rockefellers, right? Kellogg's, right? All the usual suspects, and Packard. But here we go. So, Tides Center, which is also Soros funded. Here's more money from that. Oh, and look down here. Barbara Streisand's foundation, and again, the Tides Foundation. Now, these are significant. So let's bring up, I want to bring up a tool I use called iThoughts to sort of do mind maps on some of this stuff. So, oh, by the way, he worked at the Washington Post. He was at the Associated Press. Then he was at the Center for Public Integrity. So let's, oops, hang on one second. I'm doing this in real time. I want you to watch it because I really want this to make the impression on you. Now, he was, the big thing there is Soros. We'll talk about that for a second. But also Tides and Streisand. Now, the reason I mention these is not because they were particularly huge amounts, but I'm going to notice one thing that's very interesting that jumped out at me. Tides and the Streisand Foundation are actually also the groups, along with Teresa Heinz Kerry, that are very well known. Hang on one second. I got to pick. Hang on. Pick, and boom. And the connection here is Brett Kimberlin. If you don't know who Brett Kimberlin is, you can look him up. I'll talk about him later. But, and actually these arrows are going kind of the wrong way. It should be, they funded him. Does that make sense? They funded him. But I'm going to point out that he's connected to these groups. Soros is a huge factor here. Now, one of the reasons that Soros is a huge factor is that he funded a guy named Sergei Leshchenko, and we'll talk about that in a second. But he is one of the primary funders of Leshchenko. And what I told you yesterday, and what I told you immediately, is that Solomon is hiding the story that Leshchenko was getting information from Fusion GPS. Forgive me, I misspoke. Fusion GPS was getting information from Leshchenko. They were exchanging information, let's put it that way. They were exchanging information. So, I'm just going to point out that John Solomon, who is pitched to you, you are told that John Solomon is a conservative reporter. He spent recently, he's worked for mainstream organizations, 20 years at AP, right? He's an executive vice president at the Hill, not a reporter, he's used as a reporter when they need to pitch a story, or in this case, distract from a story. But what I'm going to do is, I'm going to break this down today. The reason I'm doing this as a series is I don't want to overwhelm you. So I'm going to stop this broadcast now and let you think about it and see what people say about it and see if you're starting to get a little suspicious. Nothing I'm saying, the fact that he was at the Center for Public Integrity doesn't mean that he's a liar, therefore. But it explains his lies. And it's important to understand the difference. See, here's the thing. You know I work for Russia. So does that mean I'm going to lie to you about Putin? No. I could be telling you the truth or I could be telling you a lie. But if I do lie to you, then you could probably go, well, it could be connected to the fact that he's getting a check, ultimately, from Russian taxpayer funding, which would go through Putin or whatever. That's the thing. Does that make sense? So Solomon is a liar who has deliberately obscured information. Now, I'm not showing you that first, but I want you to keep this in the back of your head. And I think it explains why he was lying. But right now, I have not proven to you at all that he's a liar. I've just proven to you that he has these connections. And I hope that makes sense, because I'm trying to make you smarter on this. I don't want you to make the dumb mistake that the elites who run things want you to make, which is, aha, he's discredited. He's not discredited. He's discredited because he's lying. And he's lying, I believe, because of these connections. But the point is, he is lying. He's saying things that are provably false and have the effect of distracting MAGA, Trump supporters, and the president. He is distracting the president from the real story that I can also prove to you. So I'm going to cap this now. I want you to think about this a little bit. If you have any questions, I want you to hit me up. I'll be doing more of these. Till next time, I'm Lee Stranahan. Bye.